Hi there, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Analyst with the Center for Digital Intelligence, and I want to thank everyone out there for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be talking with some very brilliant mobile experts today from Belfast. So I want to just to say thank you for joining us, Connor Cassidy and Philip Rankin. Thanks for joining us, guys.
How you doing? All right.
Nice to be with you today, Kevin.
So what's the weather like in Belfast today?
I'll take that one, Phil. It's dark, overcast, and a little bit wet, but that's typical for Belfast from now right through until March of next year, I would say.
This is our south.
Well, I'm looking out, and I've got blue sky out of Boise, Idaho today, and it's going to be a cool but sunny day today. Perfect for fishing.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, we're not used to that there. We burn very easily, and we don't do good in the sun anyway, so this is just right up our alley.
All right, so why don't we start out, guys, by just introducing TotalMobile. How long have you guys been around, and kind of what's your focus area?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Connor. So TotalMobile has been established now as an organization for over 25 years. We initially started off developing financial software and housing repairs, primarily for the councils that we have here in the UK. But over time, we started developing our TotalMobile application and the platform itself. And what we've kind of learned over time is if you build the platform in the right way, it allows you to diversify into lots of different markets, which has kind of brought us to where we are today, in that we have a leading mobile application both in healthcare, local government, and industry. Really is our core sectors that we're targeting at the minute.
And on my side, I'm somewhat of a newbie. I've been here about 6 months, and TotalMobile are venturing into the land of IoT. And so Phil might talk a little bit more about the core products, but at a very high level, we have a mobile app that allows a remote worker to be more productive. Yeah. We have a scheduling tool that would allow an entire workforce to be more efficient. And so behind that, typically you would have a call center. This is what our customers have: a call center or an ERP system or something that would be manually scheduling the work for these remote workers. And so that's what I've been hired to do, is to now make this work to be generated more on demand through sensors, look out for things like preventative care, preventative maintenance, and so on.
So Connor, when I was reading your biography in preparation for our call today, it says you're kind of a UX UI guy, yet you're involved in the Internet of Things. Where do you see that those two skills being complementary?
UX UI was my background. I was a developer back in the day when I had hair. Maybe that's why I lost it all that stress from lines and lines of code. But even when I was designing websites and applications for users, I always like to be able to put myself in the user's shoes. And I think that works perfectly with IoT. I mean, it's everyday things. It's not just the very technical things that I used to work at with cybersecurity or in other industries. I can go home and I can talk to my wife and my kids about it, and you're even having smart things, sensors around the house. So it's very real, it's very tangible, and I can see personal experiences that I notice in my everyday life, and I'm able to use that to influence the work that I do here at TotalMobile.
Well, great. Thanks for giving us a little bit of the background there, guys. So another question here. Why don't we walk through memory lane together? So I've been involved in enterprise mobility now for about 18 years as well. And so I can, you know, if I think back to kind of the beginnings of enterprise mobility, we're looking at the ability to support a form on like a Palm Pilot and to be able to simply collect data from the field. And then we made this huge leap forward into the ability to sync databases in the back end to a form, and that was such a big deal. But then we were able to do bi-directional syncing, so you're actually able to pull data out to your mobile device as well. I see that also. Then we jumped to real time, which was a huge jump. And then we started building these rapid application development tools around it to make app building easier for our clients and for ourselves. Then we started doing predictive content. What do we need on the device when we see the next customer or the next patient? We added tracking and GPS and mapping to kind of our field services environments. We started tracking mobile worker KPIs out there, start and stop times, adding analytics to it, I see. And then we jump into dynamic scheduling and optimized routing and fun things like that. But now we're in the world of IoT with sensors and artificial intelligence. Is that the memory lane that you guys followed, and then where are we going next?
Yeah, so I think from a TotalMobile perspective, it's a very similar kind of process that we've kind of through, definitely moving through all the various phases in terms of Palm pilots to better devices to Windows devices to more advanced devices such as Android, iOS. And yes, there was the dabbling in terms of looking at having HTML5 applications and stuff like that. We've always tended to stay true to the native experience, and it kind of comes back to what Connor kind of covered off in terms of UX. And when we were building out our mobile platform, we've always designed it for the end user. And one of the things that I would add into that journey is we have come across competitors in the past where they're very much focused on mobilizing the back office as opposed to putting mobile first and thinking about, well, yes, at the minute we capture this big ginormous form in paper, and then they just try to replicate that exact same form on a mobile device. What we've tried to do throughout the lifespan of TotalMobile is think about it slightly differently and focus more on what the user needs to do in the field. And sometimes that means you take the existing processes, the existing big forms, and you break them down into the various components and to make sure it's easy and visible and very simple to access and complete the relevant parts of those forms and sections. But definitely, as you kind of described there, right through to the optimization of data, through to where we currently are now, where we're starting to verge on looking at some things we can do in IT, such as, for example, it could be in health, where we're starting to send predictions down for patients in terms of things like Waterloo scores, which are used to identify the likelihood of someone to have a leg or pressure ulcer develop on the skin. Well, because we have now captured all that rich data, we now have that data back in our back office system to analyze. We can now generate those predictions, send them down, and update the nurse whenever they open the visit that I'm going to see this patient to say, we think the Waterloo score for this patient is going to be high. And in that instance, that means that the nurse is better equipped to make a decision as to whether or not they then need to do that type of assessment. And by doing that type of assessment, they learn more about the patient and make better clinical decisions.
Let me stop you right there for a moment, Philip. And I want to take a moment to introduce Jimdara. Jim, thanks for joining us. And then Jim drops off.
Yeah.
Well, do you want me to take it? Well, just in case Jim's not going to come back, one step further then as to where we see ourselves going.
Yeah.
And because we have a diverse customer base, there are a number of different types of needs that we believe that we can satisfy and we can provide for our customers when it comes to IoT, for example, at a very high level, again, thinking of preventative care and preventative maintenance. Oh, so Jim's back again. So it's preventative care. I mean, we can be able to detect if something is deteriorating, if something is getting better, so that basically the scheduling of the work would change based on the demand from the individual or from the asset. Peace of mind is a big thing in this day and age. So being able to determine from live data that an individual is okay, so that, for example, if I had a relative, whether it was a mother, a father, or a grandmother that was I was paying care for, that in my busy day-to-day life of getting up and getting the kids to school and getting to work, that I can get a push notification to tell me, you know what, your grandmom's okay, or peace of mind even that should something abnormal happen, that there are measures in place to take care of that. Even if I was to miss that alert, that through TotalMobile software, there's an escalation process in place to maybe contact a secondary person, and if they can't respond, if my wife can't respond, then we can escalate that to a job through TotalMobile. Cost savings, liability, condition-based services. I mean, you're probably very familiar with when you go to a restroom or you go to in a hotel or at a hospital, that you'll see it's been cleaned at 4 o'clock, it's been cleaned at 5 o'clock, and been cleaned at 6 o'clock. But that's not really efficient. Having things like that more on demand and more on usage is a lot of where we see ourselves solving the needs.
Got it. So it's like the combination of sensors and enterprise mobility and analytics, all built on kind of real-time platforms. So, Jim, I want to welcome you back, and thanks for joining us today.
I made it. Sorry, my connectivity is not the best either. So hopefully I'm following. Anyway, that's the main thing.
All right. So Jimdara, he's the CEO of TotalMobile. You're dialing in from the UK today. Is that correct?
I am dialing in from the UK. I've been up in London all day with a couple of customers talking about the things these guys are talking about, actually. So.
Well, very good. So at one point, did kind of the Internet of Things and enterprise mobility converge?
Do you want to take that?
Well, I think it's always kind of been there in the background. It's just that I think where we're getting with sensors and beacons, we're at a stage where they're starting to become a lot more usable. And you can also see that from the fact that you see the types of apps that are out there, even the spatial type apps such as Pokemon Go that's had success, and there's a new one called Snatch that's very popular in the UK. You can kind of see how that would relate back to people being out and about and having some spatial awareness of the things that are around them. So that could be someone that's out looking for a movable plant object, which could be a forklift truck on a site, for example, and that forklift truck could have a beacon or a GPS tag on it, and it's transmitting. And what it means is the engineer turning up to do that inspection can open up their mobile device and start to see where those things are spatially to where they currently are. So I think it's always been there. I think we're just now moving into a new phase where the mobile devices have the technology to actually interact with the Internet of Things and interact with the beacons and the objects and the sensors that are out there in the field. So it's just about making sure that we capitalize on the advancements of technology and make sure we make the right bets in terms of which ones we should use and which ones we should develop for our particular platform and our customer base.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the hottest technologies that everybody's talking about is intelligent everything. So artificial intelligence kind of wrapped over or overlaid over everything. Are you seeing that within your area of enterprise mobility and Internet of Things?
Yeah, I mean, artificial intelligence is a big thing for us. Essentially, rather than sifting through the vast, complex amount of data that you have, it's all about taking in that data, whether it's data that the remote worker captures or data from the actual sensors themselves, and being able to turn that into outcomes. Yeah. And turning insights into outcomes and actions. So really that you're learning a lot quicker and faster on the job with the live data. And yeah, like for example, if you're having data on assets in a building, a 5-story building with a number of assets that are consuming power, if they're consuming more power or less power, that's a surefire way of telling you that something's wrong with that asset and it might need immediate attention.
Yeah, and there's a couple of key things that we've certainly learned with IoT and what we've done so far, in that we kind of seen it as a separate project at one stage, but we very quickly realized that it really is something that ends up being part of your whole product set. So there's relevance to have intelligence built into your scheduling part, built into your mobilized part, built into your field worker data capture part. And we have kind of seen, as we've kind of developed, specific use cases that you want to target. And one of the things that, just to kind of lead on from what Connor was saying about, you know, identifying trends, sometimes you'll know an outcome. So you know when something is broken, and that is the start point. But often what you find is it's the things that happen that lead to that outcome that then become measurable. And after you've measured the things that have led to that outcome, then you can start identifying roles and predict that those things are, that the fail in the instance of this, you can start identifying when these things start to happen, it's going to lead to a fail, which means you can stop a failure from happening by making sure you've analyzed the data correctly and starting to predict when those things are going to be happening.
Oh, I absolutely.
The way I see it,
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I do have something on this because I'm fresh off this one today. It's the convergence of two technologies. It's where Internet of Things and sensors, which can create an awful amount of data, which previously ended at a screen with a red light that said take action, and a workforce mobility software where we've traditionally played, which traditionally started with a phone call or a customer saying, please take action. So you've got those two technologies converging to automate. There's a job to do. We've got somebody to do it. And then applying the third, fourth, and fifth technologies. So you've got the application of artificial intelligence to make intelligent decisions about, is there a job? Who's the best person to do the job? When can they do the job? Can we dispatch them? You've got data analytics and data, the creation of an awful lot of data, which can become very rich in terms of predicting, actually, this person is going to have a medical issue. Yes. That boiler is going to break. That toilet needs cleaning, whatever it may be. So you've got multiple different convergence of technology. I would guess the two big ones being Internet of Things and mobility. But we are applying predictive analytics, big data, artificial intelligence. I hate to use tons of buzzwords, but we're applying all of those technologies to make it happen.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant, because I remember in the day when you would look at a map and you would just be tracking your workers, for example, with a mobile device. So you might look at the map and you see your 40 service techs out there running around. But then you add vehicles. So now you have 40 service techs and 40 vehicles. Then you add your equipment with sensors. So then you know their locations, and you start getting additional data around the performance and operating time, operating hours, etc. on the equipment. And then you start marking your location of your jobs. And then you start adding to that security. How do you enter a job site? And all these kinds of things. But then you can overlay these KPIs. Am I optimizing the use of my equipment? Am I optimizing the hours and the jobs, my team, and the skills of my team? All these kinds of things. So instead of just having a big map with a few dots on it, suddenly the map can be completely full, and you're looking to get data from sources that you've never imagined before. But then it's all about, what do you do with the data? So where do you really see, what do you do with the data? Where is that problem resolved?
So I think I'll start and I'll let Connor finish this one. So I think that's one of the key things that where we see ourselves fitting into the market. So we obviously have the capabilities for scheduling work, getting the work out the mobile device, and getting the data back again, which then you analyze and you make decisions on. But one of the key core areas that we are looking at is, when people talk about IoT and talk about big data, often they're talking about exactly what you're talking about there, in that it's dashboards and reports that people are looking at, and people have to take action on it. We want to take that a stage further and kind of look at building a rule set around the data and actually generate the jobs automatically, punting them into our dynamic scheduler, getting them scheduled inside our dynamic scheduler, putting them out to the mobile user in the field, getting them fixed without any user interaction whatsoever. And that's where we kind of see this going. So I don't know if Connor has anything to add to that.
Not really too much to add, but our Sense platform, our IoT platform, starts with the ingestion of the data, displaying it to users in a nice visual way. So yes, you will get the charts and you will be able to notice trends. But the important work is the monitoring of the data and the rules that we allow our customers to put on top of the data that's coming in, and then how to resolve that. And so it's essentially ingestion, rules, and then a workflow. So based on the telemetry that's coming in, and based on if it meets a certain criteria, then you initiate a workflow to resolve that. Now, not every resolution is going to be a job. No. It might simply be an SMS alert or a push notification, firstly, just to say, hey, by the way, that door in a cold storage unit has been left open for 35, 40 minutes. You might want to close that, otherwise £2,000 worth of food will have to be thrown out. So you don't need an electrician or an engineer to come out and do that, but it still meets the need and solves the problem. But the key to the workflows is that the customer is in complete control over how they want to resolve the situation. So it could start with an SMS But if no one responds to that, then you escalate that. It could be then an automated call. And then depending on the response to that, then we get into the power of the TotalMobile software that Phil and the guys have been working on for years.
And I think the key thing when it comes to rules as well is it could be initially that people have to manually set up rules, and that rule could be when it fails, take action. But over time, as you build your data, then what you want to extract it from your data is the data to start suggesting rules to you. So it could be, for example, a boiler is not working, but prior to the boiler, you can see that there was slight vibrations or whatever in a certain pipe or whatever you've measured, and that has led to the failure. So what you then start doing is if the rules engine is suggesting a rule, such as, okay, when the vibration gets to this level, then generate a job at that point, then it means that instead of the boiler getting to the point of failure, you've fixed it before it's actually failed. And what that means is you've got 100% runtime of that boiler and it's never down and your customer isn't impacted. And that's what it comes back to.
Absolutely. I remember when I was neck deep in enterprise mobility solutions and products and delivering customized solutions. Oftentimes we would have people call us and all they wanted was an app. When somebody says, I want an app to do the right thing, you're going to be involving just about all systems. You're going to be involving Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, enterprise mobility, syncing, security, you name it. So when you guys get sales leads, is it that same model where they think they need something simple, but when they kind of peel back the onion, it's really they need a system that's integrated with everything?
I would say, given my recent experience with a lot of customers, actually the bit they get really excited about is the data piece. It is the data and analytics. Today, talking to a large system integrator in the UK, and we went through, we have a mobile worker application. Great. Okay. Really good. Yeah. We can deliver, a level of productivity benefit on that. We have dynamic scheduling. Yeah. We understand what that is. We can deliver a level of productivity on that. The second you say, and we can link all this to sensors, which can actually create the work, they all go, okay, stop there. What's that? Tell me a bit more about this. And they'll come out with 5 stories of, this morning it was a block of housing, council-based housing with 100 apartments where they're going to put elderly, vulnerable, and people who've just come out of the care system, and they're going to have some full-time carers in this environment. But how do they monitor the health and ongoing health of the 100 people in the 100 apartments? And who needs to be seen on what frequency? And how do you link all of that up with the fact that you only have 2 carers and 100 people, and some might be getting better and some might be getting worse? And how do you manage all of this?
Right.
And they didn't think the traditional health analytics was the way forward. And we then and there basically white paged a solution for them where, with Internet of Things enabled scales and movement sensors and the like, we could pretty accurately predict whether people were improving health-wise or deteriorating based on their condition. The guys can tell you, with a level of accuracy, one of the first things we predicted was something called a Waterloo score, which was new to me. Never heard of that one before. But apparently it's a health, industry-wide health statistic for whether somebody will get a pressure ulcer or not when they return, when they're post-operative.
Absolutely.
And apparently it's a big problem.
Matter of fact, Philip was sharing that with us before you were able to join, Jim.
Okay.
That's brilliant.
So what's the level? I mean, you're getting to an 80-90% level of accuracy on that kind of thing. And that's just the start. We've had requests for insulin, that kind of stuff. Can people self-administer and we can measure it?
No, this is a whole, when people, this is just, this is moving beyond what was possible just a few years ago into all kinds of interesting areas. That's why I think there's some validity when people say, I don't know if, automation and data and sensors and all these kinds of things will simply reduce employment numbers because things are being automated, because new things are now possible, that word. And so it's going to take more people involved in what's now possible. And kind of on that what's possible note, let's talk about the future here, guys. What's this whole space going to look like 5 years from now? What would, if we're back on a hangout in 5 years from now, what are we going to be talking about that we weren't talking about today? What do you expect is going to be out there that's new and cool in 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think wearables was kind of on trend a few years ago, but I don't kind of think it's completely gone yet. And for me, when you kind of look at what Microsoft have done with the mixed reality headset and stuff like that, I think there's some validity in the direction of travel for that for certain use cases. Things like manufacturing, where you've guys in the production line and they have to fill in forms and capture data as the things are passing by. I don't think the technology is quite there yet for that, but I think it's certainly moved forward leaps and bounds. And in fact, we've done some prototypes ourselves in our labs team to kind of basically allow people to see schematics of boilers and stuff like that. So obviously, if you're looking at a boiler and it's fixed to a wall and you can't take it off the wall, then you pull up the schematic and you can kind of play about with the different parts and stuff like that. So I do think there is something in the wearables. You're obviously seeing a lot of technology being brought into the home. The devices that you can now talk to, the Android devices and Echo and the Amazon one as well. So what I actually think is going to happen, especially in the health space, is potentially a lot more communication with those sorts of things. And we have built prototypes like this in our labs department again, where patients kind of ask those devices, well, who's coming to visit me and when are they coming to visit me? Have I a nurse coming today? So, that kind of information being fed back and interacting with devices that you'll commonly find in the home in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, certainly. Most people will have that kind of technology in the home. So it's going to be about extending our reach to use the new technologies that are being developed and that will be widespread in those places. In terms of the mobile platform itself, you can see AR coming in. And there is some things in AR, for example, taking measurements and stuff like that will be very valid for people out there fixing things or trying to scope out what they have to do inside floors. So it's making sure that the new technologies we have now, someone will come, someone will go, but it's finding the ways that we can use those technologies to build on top of what we currently can offer to provide a better service to our customers and ultimately to the end users or the people receiving the care from our customers in that case.
Brilliant. Well, I want to thank you.
I think the big sorry, Kevin, the big macro trend is going to be there'll be much more capacity. We will just be better, right? We will get to jobs quicker. We'll perform the jobs more efficiently, and we're just going to have more capacity to do things. I think that's the delivery side. On the receipt side, on the consumer side, you're just going to have more immediacy. I could get a nurse right now. I could order one up on my Siri or my Google, whatever device I'm using. I could order one up. I want to see a nurse now, and that nurse will be en route within minutes. I want a boiler now. I need my tires replaced now. Anything that I want to do in the home, because it's all going to be so connected and so available, and because the capacity is going to be so much more, it just means more immediacy for everything. Everything's going to happen a lot quicker, and we just need to be ready for that.
Going to be a lot of items in artificial intelligence doing something with the data. There's going to be more connections, so we'll be able to respond quicker, expect things to be delivered and services to be provided quicker. Sounds like it's a speed issue. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening a lot faster in the next 5 years. With that, I want to thank you, Jim, for joining us, for Connor, for Philip, for all you guys for sharing your wisdom and insight with the rest of us. And so, Philip, what's your website?
It's www.totalmobile.co.uk.
So for those that speak English, that's totalmobile.co.uk, right?
That's it. That's it.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us. And I want to thank the audience for staying tuned.
Thanks very much. No, thank you.
Take care, Kevin. Thank you.